Welcome everyone to another new week of the CFO Swinger Watch. If you guys are new here and if you don't know what this video is about, there's a very quick technical analysis video on all the names that we'll be watching for this week. All right, so we have a very peculiar week for the CFO Swinger Watch. This TA video will be very short because if you guys haven't read the CFO Swinger Watch newsletter yet, and if you're looking at this video first, go back and look at the newsletter and see why we have such a weird week and why we have such a short TA video as well. All right. So let's start out with the market summary. And the SPY right here, okay, the S&P 500, we saw an immense amount of selling coming in last week as we failed the bounce that we saw 2 weeks ago, or more than 2 weeks ago at this point. So as we start to bounce, okay, as we saw a nice gap up last week on Wednesday, we made a double top and we weren't able to go past and retest the daily 50 SMA here around 459-ish to around 460, okay? And so as bad numbers came out from CPI and for the fact that both the UK and the US have been telling its citizens to leave Ukraine because of an imminent Russian invasion, okay, the markets decide to sell off fast. And on Friday, SPY moved more than 10 points in one single trading day to the downside. And as we moved to the downside, we broke below this ascending support trend line that I've been looking at for the past couple of weeks. And we actually closed below the 200 SMA once again with increasing volume as well. So I'm going to expect a lot of volatility this week, which is the reason why I'm not going to focus too much on the fundamentals of a specific stock pick, and I'll be focusing way more on the technical aspect of that specific company's stock that I'm looking at. Okay, so that should be a general summary of why I'm looking at a lot of different names without the fundamental research in the CFO Swinger Watch, and it should also explain why this video is so short as well. So for SPY here, okay, I'm going to continue to wait and see for rejection this week on multiple levels of previous supports. And the reason why is that if we reject off of those previous supports, we will turn that into new resistance, confirming that we have started another downtrend. And so all these highs that we made in the past 2 weeks here, okay, this can be one major lower high compared to the high that we made right below the all-time highs here, okay? So we have our first high, which is our all-time high here around 479.98. And then we had our second lower high, which is around 473.20-ish. And then 2 weeks ago and last week, okay, we have a relative average third high around 458, okay? And so the only way that we will confirm this third lower high is that we go below and go past this low that we made on the second lower high here. And this low was around 420.76. So I'm expecting another push lower below 420.76 and eventually a break below 420 in order to confirm that we have indeed made this area right here the third lower high, okay? So if we're going to make 458 the next lower high, we need to break below 420.76 exactly, right? So that's my broader kind of perspective on the markets. If you take a look at the weekly time frame here, it seems like we're breaking down in a weekly bearish flag here, okay? And at some point this week, I expect us to retest the weekly 50 SMA, which sits around 435 and also coincides with this weekly 435 support price level. And so if you break below the weekly 50 SMA, that's bad news bears, because we can also break below 427. Okay, and if we break below 427 on the weekly time frame, we'll head straight down to 420. And if we see a lot of selling coming in at 420, there is really essentially no support until we reach around 400. Okay, solid areas of buying comes in around 400. And so you can see that's around a 40-point move there since Friday's close. So that's like, if you want to see an actual percentage here, right? That's almost like another 10% correction. And if I'm going to touch into my bearish side here, that would be actually really great for me, because as a swing trader and as an investor, I want to get lower prices on all names in the stock market that I like. All right. Okay. So let's take a look at QQQ. So QQQ overall very weak, right? If we take a look at the weekly time frame, right, we're seeing another bearish chart pattern. So on the daily time frame, it's almost exactly like SPY. We have a nice break to the downside of a bearish flag. But on the weekly time frame for QQQ, we're looking at a macro bearish chart pattern, okay? Because as you guys are seeing me do this right here live, right? Some of you guys already know what I'm drawing here, but we're seeing a formation of a bearish head and shoulders chart pattern. All right, we have our left shoulder here, our head, and then currently we're forming the right shoulder. All right, and we have our neckline right here. Okay, this descending red support trend line. So as we're forming this right shoulder, I'm going to expect us to kind of have a very volatile up and down movement between 350 to 351 and another retest of the weekly 50 SMA, which currently sits around 359 to around 360. All right, so expect to see a lot of volatility in the tech sector and a lot more weakness compared to the overall stock market. All right, so basically SPY. So if SPY is going to move downward almost 10%, I'm going to expect QQQ to move a lot more than 10% because of the reasons that I stated multiple times in the last few weeks. Okay, so QQQ, we can see a lot more selling, and eventually we can come back down to around 336.50-ish, or if we break below that, we can see a retest of around 325, which is my next huge level of weekly support. All right, so make sure you guys are watching QQQ and SPY together. All right, so the first name that I have for you guys is Asan. So Asan is showing incredible strength, as you guys saw last week, right? Because I saw many of you guys playing Asan and profit to the long side. Now, the reason why I kept Asan here, right, is that first off, we have a breakout, right? We have a confirmed breakout. And with the confirmed breakout and on Friday's candlestick, which is an inside candle, right, which usually confirms that we can have a continuation of a trend, and specifically we're in an uptrend. So as we are going to the upside, and for the fact that we had a down day on Friday, well, because, well, you know, the tech stocks were all falling down, Asan really didn't, you know, show too much weakness, right? We didn't break below the week's lows. We didn't pull all the way back and completely erase the week's gains, or we did not come back into this falling wedge chart pattern, right? So I'm going to expect either a bullish flag formation here. So if I'm going to draw out preemptively here, this bull flag, okay, it might look something like this, right? As we're, you know, seeing some selling pressure underneath the 50 SMA, right? But if we're able to hold multiple supports intraday and on the daily time frame, especially the $61 level around around 61.50, we should be able to see a very tight price action as we conform to this bull flag. Okay, this very micro bull flag here. But if the overall market continues to be weak, there's a good chance that we can short this name to the downside as we completely erase the gains that we saw last week. Okay, so if we break below 61, all right, that's a good chance that we can see a continuation to the downside from last Friday's action. Okay, so around 61 or 60 can be a great entry to the downside. But right, for the momentum, I'm liking the momentum because of the fact that my 10 SMA has crossed above the 21 SMA, and these two pairs are my momentum SMAs. Okay, but obviously in the long term, right, in the long term perspective, if we take a look at the weekly time frame, okay, we're still very much in a downtrend, right? And the place that we rejected was around $70, and it was also again at the weekly 50 SMA, where a couple weeks back, a couple months back as well, we continued to reject off of the 50 SMA here. All right, so make sure you continue to watch out for ASAN. All right, so the second name that I have for you all is PLNT, Planet Fitness. So this one is seeing some incredible strength, right? So this is not a tech stock, right? It's a very real asset stock where it won't have too much trouble if the market decides to sell off, right? And the only reason why Planet Fitness was selling off the last 2 years was in fact of the coronavirus pandemic, right? And it saw a lot of pressure from all these different variants that were popping up. And so Planet Fitness, once people were getting vaccinated, there were lower hospitalization rates, right? And there's a lot more data that convinced investors that more and more people were coming back to the gyms. Well, because of the fact that the gyms were opening themselves, right? Planet Fitness completely erased its 2020 losses and it made new all-time highs. And so last week, we actually attempted to come back to the all-time high levels here. And as I mentioned last week and last week, we are seeing a classic W double bottom chart pattern. And eventually, we can see a nice breakout to new all-time high levels, right? And as I stated last week, I want to see Planet Fitness above $100 per share. So if we are able to hold, okay, especially on Friday's low, which was around 90.95, and if we come back above $94 here, okay, we should be able to start flagging, which we already have started on the latter half of last week, okay? We should be able to break above 95.50 and eventually 97.40-ish. And if we're able to break above 97.40-ish, it's a blue sky breakout from that point forward into the 100s. So I'm loving the momentum in this name, right? Great strength, good increasing volume of buyers, and most of the major SMAs here, right, especially the 10 SMA, the momentum 10 SMA, okay, is all curling upwards, all right? And this name has continued to stay resilient. It's continued to stay above the 200 and the 50 SMA, and even if it did go below, right, even if it overshot below the 50 and the 200, it stayed above it. It reclaimed it very, very quickly. And this usually tells me that there is good strength in this name to the long side, especially if they hold the 50 and the 200. Okay, so make sure you guys are watching this name, especially if you don't want to mess with the market turbulence, or if you don't want to play to the downside at all. All right, the last name I have for you guys all is Regeneron, REGN. So this is a biopharmaceutical name, a biotech name. And on Friday, it completely acted inversely to the market. And the reason for that is that this is a laggard stock and a RSS, a relative strength stock name. And as a laggard stock, right, this name didn't bounce or break out to the upside when the market was bouncing. And so when the market decided to roll over and move to the downside, this laggard stock decided to move inversely. And remember what I said about laggard stocks and the reason why we're looking at laggard stocks, because of the fact that they can move inversely to the market. And so this one has got a lot of good buying coming in on Friday, thanks to positive news, okay, due to recent good numbers and results on recent trials on their drugs. So Regeneron here is looking very strong, right? We broke below this descending resistance trend line, okay? And if we take a look at the weekly time frame, okay, we're looking at a nice cup and handle, very macro cup and handle formation here, okay? So if we're able to break above this cup and handle chart patterns resistance, which is sitting at all-time highs, we can possibly see this name around $700 or plus $700 in the next few weeks or months. Okay, but so far we had a great breakout on Friday as we broke above 634 to 635, which is a very heavy level of resistance that we couldn't go past in the last few weeks or so. And so since we ended above 635, we need to hold above 635 in order to continue to the upside and eventually hit the next clear level of resistance around 650. So expect a lot of strength and a lot of inverse movement compared to the market for Regeneron. Okay, so that's it for the equity picks. I do not have a cryptocurrency pick for you guys because of the stated reason in the CFO Swinger Watch. So if you guys haven't watched, if you guys haven't read the CFO Swinger Watch yet, please go read it first or second, since you guys are already watching this video first. But make sure you guys read that, all right? And see the reason why I do not have a cryptocurrency pick for you all. Okay, so that is it for this week. If you guys aren't subscribed to the CFO YouTube channel, make sure you guys are subscribed so that you guys can get a notification whenever I am live. Okay, and make sure you guys like and comment below what names that you guys are looking at for this week, especially to the downside. All right, have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you guys in the CFO Discord.